Across the U.S., help wanted signs still fill the windows of shops, restaurants, and factories, even with the unemployment rate hitting a 50-year low.
Challenger Gray predicts teens will gain 1.1 million jobs in 2023. That's lower than last year. It's also the lowest level in more than a decade. Teens are also working at pre-pandemic levels, indicating that those who want to work already are, which means tough competition for employers.
Small businesses, stores, restaurants, and seasonal businesses like ice cream shops are having trouble filling low-level positions that would typically be filled by teen workers. Now, a handful of state governments across the U.S. are trying to stimulate youth employment by rolling back child labor laws. But at the same time, child labor law violations have been on an uptick. From 2017 through 2021, the Department of Labor identified more than 4,000 cases, finding more than 13,000 minor-aged workers employed in violation. And since 2016, it has assessed more than $21 million in fines to companies. This prompted the Biden administration to announce it would ramp up its investigation into companies violating child labor laws. This is leading to the central conflict in the attempt to reinvigorate the youth labor force, a conflict between state lawmakers who want to peel back child labor laws and those who think those moves will lead to more exploitation of younger workers. In the America of the 1800s, it was common to see children toiling in factories, farms, and other workplaces. Families saw children as beneficial labor. Kids as young as 5 helped around the farm. Work environments deemed hazardous for children by today's standards, like mines, mills, and factories, had positions full of teenagers.
Poverty was the prime reason that children in the U.S. often worked in places like factories. And as the country prospered and average per capita income rose, parents were able to support their families on their own without relying on their children's wages.
The 1870 census found that 1 out of every 8 children was employed. This rate increased to more than 1 in 5 children by 1900. Between 1890 and 1910, fewer than 18% of all children ages 10 to 15 worked. By the turn of the 20th century, reform efforts became widespread as attitudes to child labor changed, with reformers citing that the long hours of premature toil and the deprivation of education caused a litany of health problems.
The federal government did pass the Fair Labor Standards Act, which did regulate and prohibit oppressive child labor. It was largely seen as symbolic at the time because for quite a long time, there was reliance on both federal and state law to protect children.
The Department of Labor has tracked violations of these standards since 1938, and a renewed focus on these violations has found many companies under investigation.
What we might be seeing is just the revealing of violations that have been happening all along. We're just becoming more aware of them.
I think loosening youth employment regulations will lead to a decline in violations, these fines that we're seeing some employers get hit with, because a lot of these violations are really minor violations, often having to do with a teen working perhaps a little bit longer than they should be under the law.
But some major companies are being fined for more grievous violations.
Some of the more egregious settings, whether it's manufacturers, assembly lines, factories, meat packing plants, those are some of the places where some serious injuries can occur.
Bauer Food LLC, a Louisville-based operator of a handful of McDonald's, was found to have 2 10-year-olds working the register, cleaning, preparing food, and using a deep fryer, all without pay, in a direct violation of child labor laws. Other popular eateries like Zaxby's and Dunkin' Donuts are also found to be in violation of allowing minors to use ovens or deep fryers to make food, which is deemed hazardous by FLSA regulations. In response to that specific incident, McDonald's chief people officer told CNBC that reports were, quote, unacceptable, deeply troubling, and run afoul of the high expectations we have for the entire McDonald's brand. CNBC also asked Zaxby's to respond to that specific incident, and a spokesperson said that while allowing younger team members to gain valuable work experience, such work must not risk their safety or interfere with their education. Dunkin' Donuts and Walnut Creek Lumber have not responded to CNBC's request for comment. Violations like these have reignited the fight between supporters of stronger child labor laws and opposition to its strictness. Despite the ongoing battle, government-ran youth employment programs are seeing strong demand for opportunities.
DYCD runs the largest youth employment program in the country. We employ over 100,000 young people in a 6-week program with our corporate partners.
SL Green, a real estate investment trust located in the heart of New York City, partners with the program.
We have people that work within guest experience, operations, marketing, forward-facing roles in which give people the chance to interact with the public. But more importantly, it gives them a chance to really hone in on interest that they have explained to us.
Elijah Christie Saki participated in the program last year when he was 19 and was offered a full-time role.
This really, truly motivates and inspires me. Being able to go up to the top every day you work, being able to see the magnificent view in the morning. It really does motivate me.
He's a perfect example of what we embrace most within this program. Here's a young man that came in that had an interest and had a passion, but wasn't necessarily sure where he wanted to take that energy. And in working with the different individuals we have from all the different leadership groups, including the mentorship programs that we put in place, we were able to help him uncover what some of those interests could ultimately lead to.
Right now, I'm doing a marketing internship with Summit. So the next step after this is to get a full-time position as a marketer.
GOP lawmakers want to reignite youth worker participation in the labor market, like DYCD has done with Eli. And to meet that end, several states have unveiled laws to loosen child labor restrictions.
Grotto Pizza's Director of Human Resources, Glenn Byram, said hiring teens has been challenging due to competition.
Teens these days seem to be much more cognizant of the flexibility in their jobs, how much they're going to get paid, the work environment itself. They do have a certain element of, I think, power in their minds, where if they don't like something that us as an employer is asking them to do, even though it's part of the job, they can easily go down the street and work somewhere else.
At least 10 states have introduced or passed laws rolling back child labor.
I think we can alleviate labor shortages not only through reducing some of these strict regulations on teen employment, but also by encouraging immigration and opening our borders to newcomers. I think it's a both and situation of encouraging immigration and reducing barriers to teen employment.
Children should not be the ones responsible for keeping industries afloat when there are worker shortages or where employers are trying to cut costs by hiring employees that are less likely to advocate for fair wages or better working conditions.
Advocates for stronger child labor laws argue that loosening restrictions creates a slippery slope toward greater exploitation of not only American kids, but also immigrants, an often exploited group in the country's workforce.
These are some of the migrant children federal officials found illegally working in a slaughterhouse, raising questions about child labor in America.
Minors as young as 14 working inside industrial freezers and meat coolers. Just one of the latest proposals by a state legislature flirting with the idea of relaxing child workplace protections.
I think we have to be concerned about the cycle of poverty that is exacerbated if children are required to work at young ages and in jobs that are not good for their health and for hours that interrupt their education.
We, of course, have long-standing laws against child abuse and against forced labor. So adding on youth employment regulations, I think, is really overkill and does more to prevent teen workers who want to work their first job than it does in encouraging any kind of exploitation.
We need to shore up the capacity of the Department of Labor to engage in investigations. They need resources to be able to enforce the federal law. There's an opportunity to strengthen federal law so that the penalties that are levied against employers who are violating child labor laws are more significant. Right now, the penalty for a child labor law violation is about $15,000 per child. That is simply not enough in a lot of cases to disincentivize an employer from violating the law. We need employers to see that it is going to affect their bottom line rather than just, having it be the cost of doing business to violate the law.
Polling suggests that most Americans are favorable to teens working and that believe that those characteristics and those qualities that teens develop while working a first job can really serve them well if it's something that's interesting to them, and we should just make it easier for them to do so.